From Rome, let's turn to the United States. In a post on X, the Salvadorian president, Nayib Bukele, has offered to exchange 252 Venezuelans who were deported from the United States and are currently detained in El Salvador's mega prison for political prisoners. According to President Bukele, the political prisoners detained by President Maduro committed no crime. The only reason they are in prison is because they opposed him and his electoral fraud. The U.S. and El Salvador say most of the deportees locked up in El Salvador's Secot prison are members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, and some are members of the MS-13 Salvadorian gang. But no evidence appears to have shown that. Meanwhile, the United States Supreme Court has ordered a temporary halt on the deportation of 2 Venezuelan men using the anti-wartime law invoked previously by the Trump administration to send hundreds of people to El Salvador. The order was issued early on Saturday after the lawyers filed an urgent petition citing an imminent risk of deportation without due process. The Supreme Court said that deportation could proceed only if those about to be taken away are given a chance to argue their case in court and given a reasonable time to contest their pending deportation. Joining me in the studio, U.S. immigration lawyer Andrew Thomas for a deeper look into Salvadorian prisoner situation. Thank you for joining us on the news this hour.
Thank you.
So the Supreme Court just blocked these deportations, saying people need a fair chance to fight their case. How of a big deal would you say this ruling is?
Well, it is deeply troubling that what is supposed to be an immigration enforcement in the United States has assumed an international dimension where innocent people are being traded for political prisoners between El Salvador and Venezuela. The Supreme Court is clear. Anybody who must be removed or deported from the United States must have their day to say why they should not be removed back to the country where they originally came from. And hopefully, the Trump administration would focus on immigration enforcement instead of playing politics by trying to find a wiggle room out of this latest order that says that these people, these 2 Venezuelans, and every other person who has the threat of deportation looming over them should have their day in court to tell a judge in federal court why they should remain in the United States.
These men were about to be deported without seeing a judge. Don't immigrants usually get a day in court first?
Typically, that is how it should be, but you would discover that the Trump administration appears coordinated to overwhelm the court system, especially the federal court system, by circumventing typical ways of immigration enforcement. I cite examples. For example, if you want to deport a student F1 status, you revoke their student status through the designated school officer of a particular university. But in this case, the reverse is the case. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have been terminating dozens and hundreds of students and telling them to leave the United States to self-deport. The same thing in other areas. If you were identified as supporting protests on campus in 2024, they are also trying to remove you forcefully. Now, if you want to be removed to El Salvador, for example, you just need to have a certain type of body art on your body. You need to wear a type of high-end urban streetwear, and they will tag you a member of a gang, either in El Salvador or in Venezuela, and that's the basis to deport you. It doesn't cohere with common sense, and it defies all sense of logic and evidence that you would want to deport people from the United States without letting them have their day in court to tell a judge why they should remain in the United States.
But the government ignored a judge's order to stop deportations before. What stops them from doing that again this time?
And that's why I said earlier, hopefully they won't find a wiggle room out of this, because when those orders began to be served to those who have been locked up in Texas, lawyers rushed to court, approached the Supreme Court that there are people who have been served notices of deportation, and within a few hours, flights might start departing to El Salvador. Hopefully, the Trump administration would obey. The Justice Department especially would not try to evade judicial review, because what the Supreme Court has said is, stop this you're trying to do. let these people have their day in court and say why they should remain in the United States. Everybody should have a right to due process, whether you're documented or not. As long as you're in the United States under jurisdiction of a federal court, you should have your day in court.
Many Venezuelans are fleeing a terrible crisis back at home. Does this ruling give others like them, like this man, better hope of staying in America?
That's another troubling part. In case you don't know, even right now, if you have a valid asylum case, is to approach the court for an interpretation or for redress.
Interesting days ahead. Andrew Thomas, U.S. immigration lawyer, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.